we have the most unhealthy relationship with God. And the moment we start working on that relationship, the same way we are so focused on working on our attachment styles so that we can find the perfect partner, work on our relationship. I often ask people, what is your attachment style to your light?
Actually, as a sensitive light similar to you, I could not grasp the concept as to why there would be evil on planet Earth. Why would God have evil? It literally doesn't make any sense. Like, why? Why do they exist? How long have they been here? Why would they just cause harm for harm's sake? Why would God allow this to continue?
I am not one to believe that there is a big central source of evil, like we would say there's a big central source of light, or like godly source. And I think in this world of duality, it gets allowed, however, the capacity to reject God.
Xavier Dagba is a shadow integration facilitator, trauma-informed teacher, and transformation guide whose work blends Jungian psychology, somatics, and spiritual wisdom. He's the author of the newly released Scars of Gold, a book about transforming pain into power through the path of shadow work. He teaches that freedom comes from integrating your shadows, and that even the darkness carries medicine when we're willing to face it. But here's the real debate. What happens when the shadow isn't just yours? What if what you're facing isn't unhealed trauma, but an entity, distortion, or evil itself? Because if we can't name where shadow ends and distortion begins, we'll keep calling interference medicine. That's where I stand, and so that is where we begin. Welcome, Xavier, to the Spiritual Debate Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, Victoria. I love the way you gave the backdrop of the conversation. And honestly, I'm just excited for everything that's going to come up.
Me too. When I was thinking about today's episode, I honestly felt like I was going to be humbled in the most blessed way because I feel like I'm truly walking among somebody who has done the work, truly embodies the work that they speak of in this world. And I'm very, very, very blessed and very excited to deep dive into this really nuanced conversation with you here today.
Well, now you set me up for for falling from very high. But anyways, I honor that and I receive that. I really receive that. It means a lot, and I just hope that people receive from it something that serves them, something that's useful, something that's really practical. I hope the conversation is not one that gives a spiritual dopamine shot and that gets forgotten. That's my intention, that people can really use what we will talk about to change their lives in a very practical way. Yeah.
Well, let me consider myself to be the sober ayahuasca of the spiritual community that is here to help people purge their limiting beliefs and misunderstandings about evil on this planet. So cheers to that. And I really feel today is going to get deep, but I don't feel like it's going to get dark. And that's very, very, very important for me, is that I always create a safe space to have these types of conversations that, for me in my world, I'm always mindful of safety. So on that note, I want to begin with a little bit of background, not too much, but enough for you to paint the picture for me of your main philosophies about shadow work, yes, but also how did the shadow work, the work of the shadow, find you?
I usually get a little conflicted with where to start, because I think the relationship with the shadow started a long time ago. And it's, as a kid, we have these experiences that we dismiss a lot. But growing up, I was just this very scaredy cat sensitive boy. And I use the word scaredy cat on purpose. It's like when you tune into things that you don't understand, when you feel into energies you don't understand, life can get a little bit scary. And that was a big part of my childhood. Like having many experiences that I did not understand, having many recurring dreams that were just like weird. And I grew up in a very Catholic Christian family, and what we did was we prayed. And that was great. It really gave me a solid relationship with God that I really cherish. It's the foundation of many things I do. Even though the framework has changed, it's no longer the rigid Christian perspective of like a God that is just waiting for you to make mistakes so that he can punish you, or I don't know, like a punitive parent. But looking back, I was already in some form of a relationship with the world of the unseen, the world of the shadow, and I wasn't very conscious. I didn't have the language, I didn't have the verbiage. And like many people, the deepening of my relationship with the shadow and also beginning to learn the language of all of that happened through a dark night of the ego. I don't call it dark night of the soul. The way I see things, the soul knows no dark nights. The soul, which I perceive as the essence of God that lives within every single one of us, knows only light. And when we go through a dark night, it is the first dawn, of the soul per se. It's like there's a crack in the psyche that allows the light of the soul to come and disrupt a whole bunch of the constructs that were inhibiting our capacity to show up as we came here to be, basically. So that's 2014. I decided to leave behind many things that I worked hard for. Worked hard to get a scholarship to go to Montreal in, studying economics, have a PhD, and I drop it and everything turns upside down. Like people who admired me started despising, thinking I was nuts, I was crazy, losing support of family, like really bad. And just being in another country, feeling isolated, not having any support, and being like, what does it look like to rebuild from here? So there was that journey of dissension. And I was really falling from being this guy that was doing great in my class, top of my master's degree, all of these different things, accolades, and walking straight towards a beautiful path. And the dissension begins where basically I'm invited to see all the things that I did not want to see. The natural, like working with the pain of humiliation, feeling alienated, feeling excluded, all of these different things. That was the beginning of the dissension. And I would say that was another deepening of my relationship with the shadow. 2014 was really yeah.
So I got a question, because I feel like when I'm feeling this, I feel two separate thoughts. When you said, I was like a scaredy cat kind of sensitive child, and then you would have weird dreams, my brain went to, oh, well, he was probably having unseen types of interference. And so when I define interference, I talk about evil or nefarious, negative forces of energy that are trying to spook you. Right? When the kid as a child would say, oh no, there's something under my bed, like come look, and our parents would look, but the child was probably right. There was probably something that they had seen through the veil. And then you start to speak about, I had these accolades, 2014, right? I went through this kind of dark night of the ego. To me, they feel like one feels like shadow, but then the other, how did you discern that that was maybe potentially shadow or something else?
Growing up, definitely. I mean, you're right. What you're tapping into there are definitely two different energetic threads. The energy that I felt as a young kid felt a lot darker, and it felt like there was intent in there. One thing that I've seen when it comes to dealing with shadow material that is ours, sometimes there's very little, you know, there's a feeling of like you're working with something that has an intent, a specific intent. And the specific intent is like, I don't want you to go there, or I need, there's an energy there, and you can, the only word that I have is the word intent. You feel like you're working with something that has an intention to amplify fear and to create even more repression, an intention to, I want to say, activate more. Yeah, amplify fear would be the main thing. So as a kid, that's the specific energetic that I felt, and it was like there was this attunement to things that I couldn't say I really understood. And even in the dreams that I had as a young kid, it was like I didn't really understand what was going on. And there was no one around me who would give the time of the day to even deepen and explore. It was just like, no, let's just pray more. And that was let me say that was a safe haven as well. But yeah, the energetics were completely different. So the spiritual reinforcement that I did back then was all about one thing, taming a little bit there was a little bit of numbing that I went through to kind of like maybe not perceive as much.
Right.
And the other thing that I did was just like finding a safe haven in God, religion, prayer, stuff like that. That was what I did at that moment. So every time I felt something that was, you know, that you might say is an interference. And I've had many situations where you're lying down in bed, the thing that we often call sleep paralysis, all these things like that. As a kid, I had a lot of that. And, calling out loud the name of Jesus, praying, things where these worked for me as a young kid. But I never really at that time had the attunement or even the awareness to deepen my exploration of all of that. Now, if we go fast forward to what happened in 2014, it was like, okay, I am invited to face the wounding that I'm already carrying, the emotions that I did not allow myself to feel before, the anger that was repressed. It didn't feel like there was an intent there. It was just me, and I was like invited to dive into my own emotional attic to meet what was there, and that felt liberating, but it felt organic. And what I mean by organic, it's like no, there weren't any, very little. I did not feel as much that there were psychic free radicals, like interferences. It was like, okay, this is my own stuff that I have this own that I get to descend. It was still scary because it was untrained, but yeah, I had to descend into the attic of my psyche or dive into that to reconcile with everything that was there. So yeah.
So basically, in your introduction in this moment, you literally defined an experience with evil, right? And then an experience with shadow. And what I'm hearing from what you're saying is actually very similar to what one of my philosophies are, which is there is a difference between shadow, navigating the raw material of my memory, of my childhood, of my belief systems, of my of my fears, my fear of becoming the full light and expression that I came here to be. And then something else that tries to inhibit that light. Something else that tries to break into my home that I have bound or protected or locked for good reason. And that nuance I find is still very uneducated and unspoken about within our community. We're on this awakening journey. We understand, or at least try to understand, how to be able to look at our shadow. But sometimes I find, and I'm curious where you are in your adulthood now, sometimes I find that even though I look at my shadows and even though I navigate my triggers, even though I take care of that, sometimes the brighter my soul shines, the more these different things, other things try to enter. So you spoke about your childhood, and then you spoke about, 2014. As an adult now, do you have different sorts of psychic things that try to enter your field?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And before we even get in there, I'm definitely going to talk about that. That's so important. There's something that I believe most people, especially in the West, keep in the shadow. It is their own awareness of evil. One of the first things that we keep in the shadow that we just cast away as like woo woo or too weird, too scary to even like the awareness of evil. We all have this sense of like there's something weird in there. There's something that is not that carries an intent to disrupt, to sometimes even harm, to cause chaos, to amplify fear. One of the senses that we often do not allow ourselves to really refine and tap into is the sense of evil. And I'm sorry for all the spiritual seekers that are here that are only tuned onto the Pollyanna channel. I believe in truth and God and light and beauty and angels. And at the same time, we have a sense, a capacity to tune into these polar opposite energies that reject everything that we may see as beautiful, loving, godly, or godlike. So we do have a sense of evil. I think it is a sense. The same way touch and smell. And the same way we have a sense of truth. I'm talking about spiritual sense. It's like some people are really refined in that sense. And they are able to smell when something feels fishy, something feels weird. We have the same sense when it comes to really dark, and I'm not just talking about negative energy, like having like negative thoughts. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about evil. So one of the questions that is sometimes challenging for people to even conceive, it's like, is it safe in my psyche to even admit in the existence of forces out there that do not have the highest, I mean, purpose or design for in their hearts, or that may not even have a heart. So this is really scary for people to ponder, and bringing people out of I would say, the denial of evil is usually a big part of the work of, like, hey, there is not just humans and angels and godly energy. There's also energy that is really nefarious. So that's one of the things that I usually invite people to look at. And with that begins even another initiation. It's like, if evil is real, how do I find safety in a world where evil is real? Because in the West, there's so much of, like, it's been pushed. The relationship that I see most people have in the West with evil, they're relegated to horror stories. And maybe that's part of the conditioning. Oh, that can't possibly be real. These are things from the movies. These are things that you watch on a horror show, and then you try to forget about that and you go to bed. But sometimes you tune into this, and a part of you is like getting you to remember, bro, shit's real, okay? This shit is real. And as a child, I come from an African family. My dad is from Benin. My mom is from Cameroon. My dad was very aware of voodoo growing up. So he was always very clear. It's like, the devil is real. So you better get on your prayer, and you better get connected to God. So as a kid, having that awareness, oh, there is real darkness there. Not just the things that you don't want to see, but like evil energy out there. The adjustment to finding safety, ground within myself, it took some years. So that's one of the things that I want to say. But to you, the question that you mentioned, which is, hey, is it possible that the brighter you shine, the more nefarious energy you might be, that might want to disrupt your capacity to shine? 100%. And I would say this is physics. It is not even personal. It's physics. What I mean by this is physics, like consciousness, the same way gravity has physics to it, which is, at the very least, the set default of gravity. Some people might understand. It's like gravity itself is a spectrum, but without diving into too much into the esoterics of that, the set default version of gravity that we know is that I hold something, I let go of it, it falls. That's gravity 101. I shine brighter, it starts disrupting the energies that benefit from darkness. And what do they try to do? Attack the source of light. And I often like to say to people, it is completely it is not personal, it is physics. What I mean by that is, some people want to learn, we get seduced by this idea to shine brighter, to bring a light to the world. But there's a whole work of spiritual reinforcement that is necessary for the light to be steady. Unless at some point, when you get tested in your capacity to really ground the light, instead of just being, the difference between burning bright and burning out. Most people when they are not really solidly anchored within themselves, they will burn out. It's like that light will burn, and when you might call it interferences that are sometimes amplified by also some of our unresolved fears and emotional injuries, when they happen, the capacity to steady ourselves in the embodiment of our light is gets challenged, and some people burn out there. But if you have built the capacity to really stay rooted in your heart and witness these energies that are so disruptive, whether it's within or without yourself, coming from within or without, there is more of a capacity to be in tune with your light without letting it burn out. I'm wondering if I'm kind of making sense there, but this is what is present at the moment, and we can refine it.
That is exactly the entire philosophy of how I teach about psychic and energetic integrity and protection. Many years ago, when I started talking about psychic protection, I'd have mediums on my platform being like, "You're so dangerous to talk about." And at the time, it really shocked me. It destabilized me because I felt like there was so much bravery in being able to talk about my journey that I had had with different nefarious energies. And this was we need to have a conversation about this. But over time, the more that this started to happen, I realized something. To your point about the senses of evil, some people simply don't smell a demon in a room yet, and maybe not ever at all. And that's okay. I believe my personal philosophy is God gives those that he wants to see, those particular eyes to see. And that God shows us different things so that we can understand it because it's a part of our unique path. In my journey, I actually had to experience nefarious attachments on my energy for a lot of psychic attack at night, for a lot of that sleep paralysis like you spoke about, over and over again without any education about entities at all. None. There was no one who was talking about it. And this was only a few years ago that I felt I could rely on, connect with, communicate with. And this was one of those moments for me where God gave me those eyes to see and say, hey, there's something else here. That's not just your shadow. That's not, maybe you're having panic attacks. That isn't, maybe you're struggling with anxiety a little bit, but something else. And then by the grace of God, I met the right healer at the right time who was able to support me. But to your earlier point, I had to be very mindful of the way that I was sipping these truths about the universe into my psyche, because I actually, as a sensitive light similar to you, I could not grasp the concept as to why there would be evil on planet Earth. Why would God have evil? It literally doesn't make any sense. Like, why? Why do they exist? How long have they been here? Why would they just cause harm for harm's sake? Why would God allow this to continue? Why don't we just do the Great Flood all over again? Like, every single time I tried to go there, I could only go enough, just enough, until I started to dig. And then when I needed to try to understand more and more and more, probably the same way we navigate God, right? The second we try to understand it, we realize this is an infinite understanding of something that I will never actually totally be able to understand. I had to get to that same place with evil. Like, I had to get to the point where I understood there's clearly a purpose that serves God's organic creation. First, it has to be purposeful, otherwise it would have been gone. The second thing I had to come to grasp with was I cannot be in my full natural light with these different nefarious attachments. That was the truth for me, that they could try to enter, they could latch and attach, but I could never blaze in my full spiritual strength in this lifetime if I had these openings where these nefarious entities were feeding me things that were not my truth light. So I was also true. It's like, clearly they're here for a purpose, but for me to fulfill the completion of my purpose, they might have to initiate me, but they are not staying with me. So then this led me to what I call my sovereign healer method, where I teach people, beautiful, sensitive people like ourselves on this awakening journey, how to ground our energy field, how to cleanse our field, how to place protection over our energy field, how to shield our field. So like removing as many noisy variables as possible so we can start to hear true discernment. And so those are really simple tools, but they are the foundation, in my opinion, that every light worker who is on this awakening journey has to have at the bare minimum. And they should, in my opinion, become what I call like your second skin. So it's like before I had this call with you, I placed in my grounding cord, I put on my shield, right, to protect my energy field, to make sure that I can be here in full strength with you and not pick up any of your energy or you, me, just to radiate my natural light. And those are just simple things. When I'm complete, I cleanse, right? I cleanse my energy field, imagining white light through my energetic centers. Simple things like that have foundationally changed the integrity and the capacity that my energy has. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about that.
I love that so much. I love that so much on so many levels. The first thing that I love is you mentioned the journey of going through or going down the rabbit hole of evil, which is a scary rabbit hole where, people can get stuck. One thing that I love to say to people is I am not one to believe that there is a big central source of evil, like we would say there is a big central source of light, of like godly source. And I think on this in this world of duality, it gets allowed, however, the capacity to reject God with all our might. If we believe that free will is a thing, if we believe that's a thing, let's go with that assumption. It is a thing. Therefore, I can say fuck you to God and fuck you to every godly principle that is out there. If we go deeper than that, and if we believe that the earth has never been the only planet of free will, that free will has been given to maybe other places out there, maybe that are, in terms of consciousness, way more advanced than we have ever been on earth, and that they also had the capacity to give the middle finger to God and say, well, fuck you, God. And let's say they were capable of, like, I don't know, as great deceivers as possible, like go other places in the cosmos and attempt to deceive and sometimes even play God. It's like, I really believe that as soon as you give free will to some beings, you also give them the capacity to choose evil, the capacity to reject God. And one thing that I've seen so many people do is we get so arrogant at times to say, oh, I'm not capable of evil. And that is the entry door of evil for so many people. It's like just the entry door. It's how it hides in plain sight. Like, oh, I'm not capable of evil. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you seriously just fucking kidding me? How much arrogance does it take for you to stand on a pedestal and to say, oh, I'm not capable of evil. I would never do. No, I would never do that. And usually people shake their face. No, no, I would never do that. I'll just like, oh yeah, right. Like now I have a harder time trusting you than ever before because you put yourself on such a pedestal. I really believe that the arrogance, we have a lot, especially spiritual seekers, we have a lot of arrogance when it comes to our relationship with evil. And that's what evil loves. It's like as soon as the best place where it loves to hide is light. That's the best place where it loves to hide. It's morality. It is light. It's like, no, I would never do that. I would never. Oh, no, no. I would never do that. So that's one of the first things that I would love to say. Now, assuming that I have capacity for evil, and that comes included it with the package of free will, it is our responsibility to make sure that we are operating from the most integrous place ever. And what you're talking about, which is, looking at your own, tuning into your own field and making sure that it is integrous. Because integrity and integration for me, that's really when I use that word every single time, I go back to the core meaning of the word. Integrity, entirety. Integrous, one. So as soon as the field is fragmented, there is an opening somewhere for evil. I often talk about an entity needs an entry point. An entity needs an aspect of you that is willing, unconsciously maybe, to contract with it. Yep. And when we are working with these energies, when to cleanse them, I usually ask people, it's like, the part of me that needs to contract with this energy. Call it, and some people don't like, they get scared of the word entity. And like the part of me that needs to be in contract with this energy is, and the payout I receive from that is, it's like I usually get them to spill the beans. And what I've seen is some people, at the very least the ones who are at a space where you've created the space where they can no longer hide, they will talk and they will speak and they will spill the beans on so many levels. But what I've seen, the practice that you're bringing in is so important to establish that energetic anchoring, that space of, I want to say, integrity. To me, I relate to that as integrity, where your heart is available and your spine is solid. And your spiritual spine at the very least. And it's a space where you can trust that in the best of your ability, what you are sharing, what you're emanating, what you're bringing to the world, what you're creating is coming from the, I want to say, the most integrous place possible. So these practices that you're mentioning, I find them really, really amazing.
I love what you shared about how there always have to be entry points or openings, because that is one of the biggest things I see with evil. I see three main things. Well, above all, I see them as very seductive and very tactical. There's obviously a reason why even spiritual seekers seem to be some of the most parasite infested, entity attached people. There's a reason. One of the biggest ones that I see is through inversion, meaning if I can make the devil look like the angel and the angel look like the devil, then the devil's won. So oftentimes we see this a lot with those of us that are on our path that are really doing this inner and outer work to stay fortified in our integrity. And here comes this person that is just reeking of evil intent that then tries to enter our field by, Xavier is not actually a shadow worker. He is actually the source of all evil. And here are all these fake receipts that I have to prove that, right? So that's like part one. And then from there, should we be a good person, which I believe at the heart of hearts, we try to be good people, but there's an entry to that. Maybe it hits one of our vulnerabilities, or in our full strength, we're meant to simply emanate our light, but it gets in some way. Then an opening is next. So the first is inversion, and then openings happen. And then from here, now it's about recruitment. I find with entities, because they need an external source to thrive, they're not whole. I say, if God is the sun, then an entity is an external outlet that always needs something external to mimic sun. So now it's like, well, if, Xavier is the evil one, then come with me. Let's create this whole Reddit thread. Let's band together and try to take him down, even though the initial source was actually the evil one. This is kind of like the three main tactics I notice with evil. And I find it fascinating that some of the greatest tactics that are being used right now in terms of creating openings are around the We Are All One movement. And let's supplement the word God with universe or source. These are huge for me, because if I don't have to sit with the fact that I have shadow work to do around the word God, then I will always, in some way, think that I am God. In my personal belief, I don't believe I'm God. I believe I am a fractal of God. I was created in the image of God. But to me, that's not the same thing as being God. Every time I try to play God, I create openings in my energy field. I am the one who could do this thing. The universe has my favor in mind. But the second I have a singular, devoted, monogamous relationship with God, our creator, my field is more whole. And then, well, if we are all one, then nothing is two. And if nothing is two, then everything is one. Therefore, what's the point of discernment? What's the point of fortified energy fields? What's the point of protecting myself? Because everything is meant to be and everything is a lesson. And I find those two are really strong, where evil is really working the utmost in that kind of like love and light. We are God, very, very gluttonous and self-centered perceptions about who we truly are.
I love so many, it feels like just going through everything you just dropped on the table there would take, anyways, let's just take a few of them because I love it so much. One of the first things I'd like to say, the first one is, you talked about the inversion. You talked about the entry points. You talked about the recruitment, and it is so. When I started studying a little bit evil, and I was like, I started having a lot of respect for it. A lot of respect. What I mean by respect there, honestly, it flirted even a little bit with admiration. And my wife Renee, sometimes I was talking to her, I was just like, geez, the devil is fucking smart. And she's like, bro, I don't like when you talk like that. And I was like, man, you gotta give props. You gotta give props to the how Machiavellian the energy is. It's and she was like, because when I wrote the book, Scars of Gold, for example, I started mapping out some kind of like six core fears that people deal with: humiliation, alienation, loss, persecution, death as another core fear, and to a certain degree, betrayal as well. When you talked about inversion and how one person will be like, oh, this is the person who is like, this person is pretending to do the work and this person is actually a piece of shit and all of that. It's what happens. The entry point for me would be twofolds. Like, first, I could feel humiliated and feel like I need to defend my name. So the wound of humiliation, if I don't have the capacity to be with that, to be with the shame and potential ridicule that somebody wants to throw at me, that's a latch. That's an entry point. Another thing is like the recruiting. It often feels it works on the alienation exclusion wound. It's like, oh, the more I feel alienated and cornered, and so many people seem to be gathered with this perspective that, oh, there's something wrong with me. I start feeling alienated, I start feeling excluded, and if that has a strong imprint within me, whether I carry many, many fractures of exclusion within my psyche, boom, it can become another entry point. And persecution is another thing. If I carry memories of bullying from childhood that are still not fully integrated and worked with, as soon as an energy like that comes my way, and I don't have access to my, let's say, clean anger to be like, fuck no, I will not allow this thing to pierce my field, and I really crumble under the energy of persecution, boom, that becomes another entry point. So all of these different things that you're talking about, as you talk about them, I'm just like mapping in my head, okay, what are the I call them sacred wounds. Loss, persecution, it's like, you know um death, which is another big one, especially the death of an identity. I'm gonna take an example. For me, at some point, 2014, I really see myself as this guy who is like really going towards the brightest future. I had created an identity around it, and boom, God speaks, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna follow what you're inviting me to create in my life. Everything falls apart. I now have the identity of a fucking failure, not knowing what he's doing. Oh, I go through a period of 3 years of darkness, really, where I felt at times interferences as well. So what I'm trying to say, all these mechanisms of interference, I see the parallel with so many of the wounding that we carry. And on something that you're bringing as well, I think arrogance is one of our biggest downfalls when it comes to our relationship with evil. You've mentioned seeing ourselves as God. There's arrogance in there,
Yes, yes.
a sheer degree of arrogance in there. And when we put ourselves on this spiritual pedestal, of course, we have divine power, we have godly power encoded within us. I don't think you are denying that, you know. But the thing is, when we want to assume the position of God, it is really creating this distortion where, I mean, many of these entities at the same time, they also want to play God. They want to usurp the place of God. So we are basically playing out in the specific agenda already of darkness without necessarily knowing. I think a grounded level of humility for every spiritual seeker, but a humility that does not reject your godlike essence or your divine essence, is so necessary as a potent protection mechanism against our own madness, our own capacity for evil, because we are so capable of that. And to the thing you said about God, about even healing our relationship to the word God, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. I posted something on my Instagram. I knew I was healing, and I'm basically saying the what I posted because I like posting some of my sentences there. I said, I knew I was healing when I was no longer triggered by the word God. And I just posted out there. I think a little under 1,000 people unfollowed me after I posted that thing, the same day. And what that told me was we have the most unhealthy relationship with God. And the moment we start working on that relationship, the same way we are so focused on like, oh, working on our attachment styles so that we can find the perfect partner and work on our relationship. I often ask people, what is your attachment style to your light? It's like, what is your attachment style to God? What is your attachment style to your shadow? Do you have a secure relationship to God? Do you have a secure relationship to your shadow? Another challenging one. Do you have a secure relationship to evil? And people are just like, my friend, holy shit, I don't even know what you're talking about. You're trying to bring me into some like dog shit. Get away from me. I've asked that question so many times. Do you have a secure relationship to evil? Can you feel the presence of something that is off in the room and stay rooted into your heart and to your center, which is what I mean? Or do you basically start being all jittery and anxious? Are you able to keep your heart open and rooted in your essence when you feel that something is off in the room, when an energy is there's distortion ambient? So you just touched so many things, and I could go in a million directions, but this is just what is coming up in response to what you said.
Waking up can feel like your whole world is turned upside down, and there's no one there to catch you. What? And so you ask yourself, who am I? What's my purpose? What are my gifts? And years later, you're still asking yourself the same questions. Cue the Sovereign Healer, the only psychic development and energy healing sovereign development school that'll help you understand your unique abilities without leaving your meditation cushion. Let's get it.
Oh, I mean, I knew we were gonna be on similar waves, but this is one of those episodes for me where I'm like, I could spend 10 hours having a full conversation with you and feel like I've hardly like scratched the surface because I feel like we're kind of riding the same wave of understanding. And it always, for me, I mean, maybe it does hit one of those like wounds of, did you say like alienation, like feeling particularly about talking about evil. It has felt alienating for a very long time for me to speak about it because similar to your point about, do you have a secure attachment style with evil? When I began speaking about it, I felt like God was kind of like, go. And I was not energetically ready to be okay with what could come as a byproduct of starting to speak about this, such as, you're so negative. Why are you always talking about hard, dark stuff? Like, why are you only marketing about this? I'm like, these are the codes that I am being called to share. In some ways, I really, really, really wish that my mission was to sit on my 5D rainbow and tell us all, totally, hashtag Queen Bee. Like, I would love to be your 5D manifestation. Here's how you can make this kind of money. But here's what I can tell you. Being very blessed by abundance because of God. It has only fulfilled the mission. It is all just source of more light, to continue the light, to source more light, to continue more light, so I can talk about evil. So I can pioneer evil. And the reason why I share that is because it just feels very home to connect with you and to communicate with you and to speak to another person who just gets it. Honestly, brother, who just gets it and is doing that work of being able to be so solidary in your own energy field that you can truly have the sword of truth to be able to feel and discern what is not truth light, what is not true light. In my journey, the easiest way for me to be able to do that is to trust what I call the feeling. When you look at when you look at someone or you're talking to them or you're on social media and you're looking at their content and there's a part of you that's equally like, as much as you're like, I don't know what it is, but when I find out, I'll get it. Usually that to me is my discernment. Now, how I would know it was a shadow if I started to project some of my stories, such as, well, it must be nice for them, right? Oh, I wish I could. Okay, well, like, good for you being thin and this, that. Like, when I notice that there is an energy coming out of me, like I've got little spikes, then I know it's a projection of my own shadow. But when there's a part of my body that is repelling me, but also, as darkness does, allure me, seduce me, whether that be by money, career, sex, whatever it is, whatever the devil wants to use in that any given moment, that's how I know my discernment is communicating with me. It took me a while to get this because it's not always, no, that's not the right energy. Sometimes it's very subtle. And if it's, especially sometimes like when it's in your close circle, sometimes I've found that evil will work through what I call like weaker spirited people, meaning people who don't have direct connections with God, who are constantly trying to outsource, who don't truly understand who they are, haven't sat in enough contemplation to like understand who am I, why am I here, what's my unique purpose. So the second something shiny comes in, they grab it. Sometimes I find evil will try to go through weak spirits in your close circle to like try different tactics. The second you feel that like something shifted, I don't know what it is, something is off, that's how I read discernment. I'm curious, how do you discern now, being many years into your journey and also being able to sense? How do you discern? Hey there, it's me, V. So, as you can imagine, this is my first podcast. And so I'm learning all of these new ropes. And did you know how important ratings were? I didn't. I had absolutely no idea, and I'm so thankful for the support of my team for reminding me of how important having your ratings, your honest reflection of the podcast, how much that benefits us. So I'm that annoying person in the middle of everyone else's episodes that I fast forward that hopefully you're listening to right now. And if you've got 30 seconds, it would mean the absolute world to us if you could take a moment and just rate this podcast, give it a thumbs up, share it with your bestie that you want to go head to head with, so we can continue to spread this message, debate about the truth, find what the truth is, and have the kinds of conversations that truly help us awaken in integrity. All right, back to the episode.
That's a beautiful question. And what is coming up is a lot of the, you called it the feeling. And when you said that, I actually went back to many experiences, because the sense that I usually have is, oh, there's something else in here. It's like something else is here. I don't really know how I'm able to explain it. I will do the very best I can. When I usually get in conversation with somebody, maybe it's something that I've done since I was a kid. It really gets. It's easy for me to feel their core, to feel their center somehow. And it's easy for them to kind of like tap it. Like this area of my body, for some reason, allows me to kind of sense people. And when I have a hard time sensing somebody, I'm like, there's something inside that does not want to be sensed. There's something here that does not want to be sensed, that does not want to be noticed. And that, there's like something in the air. I don't really know what it is necessarily. And usually with that, I anchor an intention within me. And the intention is, may this energy else that is here in the field, whenever I'm in the room, be either I would say, usually something along the lines of, may it not act out in my presence. Like, may it not act out in my presence. Or if it chooses to act out, that's something different. Usually there's some form of warriorship that emerges within me when I really feel like there's something else that has entered the room. But anyways, because I also don't want to go out and be I don't constantly want to interact with energies that I really don't want to interact with, especially when you don't have license to support somebody through whatever they're experiencing. But the discernment that I often feel when we go back to this, we have a sense of evil. We have a sense of something that is off. We do. It's a sense. And I often ask people, maybe go back in the past and attempt to remember all the people in your life that turned out to be off the charts, maybe weird, and make sure, just like you said, make sure it's not maybe some of your own jealousy that you're projecting at somebody, or some of our envy that you're projecting, or some of your I often see envy as some of our own desires that we haven't really reclaimed. They live in the shadow, and we're like have shadow reasons why other people may be able to get that, but not us. You know, and I'm like, okay, first make sure it is not some of that. Make sure there's not some Schadenfreude going. That's how the Germans talk about, wanting the person to have something bad happen to them so that you can feel better about yourself. Because that's also a lot of our own shadowy stuff. And that specific energy, that specific thing, sometimes it flirts a little bit with like ill intent or evil intent, like wanting somebody. That's a spell often, wanting somebody to fall or to hurt or to have something in their life go wrong. Envy, the reason why in so many, I would say, religious traditions, it is seen as something that no, you don't want to go there. It's because it's an entry point. Because whenever you feel that, you can cast a spell, which is the silent hope. And sometimes we don't even voice it, but it's just like intending that something negative, something painful, something hurtful happens to somebody so that you may feel better about yourself. That's a powerful entry point for evil as well. But anyways, going back to the discernment piece, if you are able to notice your own projections and you know that in this moment, I wasn't projecting something. In this moment, what is going on is I am sensing something that I cannot define. But there's something here listening to me, or something here paying attention. There's some other energy here. I say to people, honor it. Just honor it. And as soon as you feel that, amplify your spiritual, support, or your spiritual, I would say, protection. But yeah, it's a sense. To me, it's more of a sense. And I can feel that when somebody is applying to work with me and we have that first conversation, or even within a group container. It happens a lot when I had a season where it would happen quite a bit. And usually, as soon as I would sense that, maybe a couple weeks down the road, the person would say, for some reason, I have to step out of the container. Or for some reason, that would be if this is a person that is also not open to doing the work necessary to cleanse what is emerging there. I've seen that so many times.
Yeah, you and me both. I mean, I work as an energy healer, so I actually remove these beings. And anytime, pretty much 100% of the time, when I've spotted something, then usually there's a flip. I gotta go. Or, wait, you've been manipulating me this whole time. Like you were trying to sell me on something. Like there's a flip of the energy. And I've also found, especially when people are called to do my work because the voice of God is coming through and saying like, hey, someone can support you. This is a person who specializes in removal. Then what I find happens is their initial burst of energy is there. Victoria, I'm ready to do this work. Here we go. Like, let's make this happen. And then when I say, okay, let's do this, here you go. Here's the payment link. Let's get started. When I get I'll think about it, I'll come back. I have never had one person who they have said that. I need to think about it. Give me a few days. I'm going to settle down and process it in my body. They've never come back. And I have concluded it is because when whatever they were dealing with caught on to the fact that I would see whatever it was that they were dealing with, then when they sat with it, that voice of whatever has been stronger in their energy field takes over. Because in my world, I feel like there are two different things that happen, two different types of battles when it comes to nefarious entities. Let's say I had one. The first one would be the battle for truth. being able to feel that truth, and there's a battle going on with that. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's this. Maybe I should get help from that healer, or maybe I should try to revoke it. Why, right? The battle of truth. But then let's say you're my healer, and I'm like, okay, Xavier, let's just do this. Go, okay? Take my money. Let's do this work. Now it becomes the battle of light. And when it comes the battle of light, I might start acting out. Screw this. I don't want to do this work. I'm not feeling my best. Like I thought we were going to move faster. And then your role is to be like, hey, remember your light. Remember why you're here. Remember you are solid. You are sovereign. Reclaim your light. And I find that, and it's like that coaching a little bit as we're trying to get the removal to happen. It's a battle on two folds. The truth, and a lot of times, unfortunately, the second that I see the truth in someone, sometimes if they don't move fast, most of the times if they don't move fast, I don't know, Xavier, my highest hope is that they get the support that they need. But I understand how this game works, and my fear is that it won't be in this life. Because we're at such an accelerated time in our evolution, and everything is happening so intensely that I feel, and I'm curious what your thoughts are, like I personally feel this deep calling to make this the life where I can fully be of service to God and not have these interferences and be fortified. Like I truly feel maybe hopefully in this life, this would be like the life for me. And I feel like maybe a lot of those of us that are on the spiritual seeking path potentially feel the same, like this is our time to really try to guard God, not play God, guard God's original intention.
There are a few things that in what you said that I find really interesting, especially around, when people are pulling away and the fear that it might not be in this lifetime that they will embrace the work needed to be done. Light works in very mysterious ways, and the touch point with you, I see that as a seeding, and it could have even been a reseeding. When they come to see you, it's like there is something inside of them that wants liberation, and that thing inside of them is we one of the pitfalls that we often have with our devotion to liberation, as we build an awareness of evil, of demons, and all of these sometimes most people can get spiritually black-pilled. And it's another inversion where we we are so highly aware of these entities that we may believe that they are so powerful that they will shut down the voice of God inside of the person that is, hijacked for such a long time. And I'm just like, there are two things that I'm done underestimating. I am done underestimating evil, but there is something I will sure as hell never attempt to underestimate. It is the seed of divinity, the seed of God inside of one person. Even if it's a person that is, possessed by 1 trillion entities. I would never dare underestimating that. And usually when I sense that somebody is not moving ahead because of a fear or because of an attachment or because of resistance, I will intend in so many ways. Like, I don't need to be your person. I really don't. And at some point with some people, I've just said even, I don't think I even want to be your person. But I want that thing inside of you that made you see a potential of us working together to amplify tenfold, maybe even more than that. So that maybe in this lifetime you find the proper route for you. I am a big believer that we are navigating the lifetimes of profound transformation. And honestly, I wouldn't underestimate as well how much the impact that being in your presence can have on people who come and will never take out their credit card. I remember one thing, there was a teaching that I received from Carolyn Miss at some point, and she was talking about a story of a big priest, that was really renowned for having, healing energy, and some people would travel from afar to come see the guy. And there were, many people really experiencing healing, like sometimes even on the spot healing. And there was one person who traveled from very, very far and came to see that priest. I think it was somewhere in Europe, possibly Italy, I'm not sure. That guy came to see the priest, and the priest called him to be like, okay, you came here out of many people, and be like, okay, come then and receive, and let's just work on whatever you're working with. And the guy came and said, I am not prepared for how much being in your vicinity can change my life. And the person just turned and walked away. And that for me it's usually what so many people during these times are experiencing. One of the big things that so many people are not willing to see, we see light as extremely unsafe.
Oh.
Extremely unsafe. And we've learned to find safety in darkness. We see truth, especially undesirable truths, as extremely unsafe. And for some people, inviting them where you are inviting them is basically telling them, I need you to find a new kind of safety that is only available when you surrender to light. And you're like, what? Are you fucking kidding me, girl? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I am safe when I hide. I am safe when I contract with things that work in the dark. I am safe when I can find outlets to express my rage in ways that cannot be attached to me. I am safe when I can, intend that you experience. It's like, if I don't know how to resolve a conflict directly with you, what am I going to do? I will be seduced by something that can go and hit you in a way that cannot be traced back to me. If I don't have the capacity to be sovereign, but I really have a grudge, but I really want somebody to experience pain, what am I going to do? I am going to contract with an energy that can operate from the shadow. And that may be unconscious. But it's like, what you asking of people, and I think through this work, we are really asking of people is be fucking transparent. And that means a level of vulnerability that most people are scared of. Transparency is the enemy of darkness. It's the enemy of evil. So every time I am dealing with, and every time when my senses go up and I feel like, oh, I am dealing with some of that energy, I will crank up the levels of transparency in my life, especially when I'm interacting with with the person that causes my senses to be heightened. If it's in an exchange, I'll make sure that everything is laid down, everything is written out. Nothing hidden. If it's within a group setting, I was like, oh, if we have something to resolve within the context of this group, we're gonna handle that within the group for all eyes to see. It is gonna happen under the light. If there's anything that we're gonna deal and handle, it is gonna happen under the light. So when I sense that energy, I'm like, oh, transparency up, all the way up. And usually there are two outcomes. Either people step in even more, and there is this release and this clearing, or they're like, I'll see myself out, please. So yeah, these are just a few of the things that are emerging when I, from your previous share.
Oh, that is really good. That is really good. I'm gonna take that transparency piece, because when I do speak to them, I'm very transparent in a certain level, but not actually consciously thinking about it. So usually if I'm in an engagement like this and I know what I'm potentially dealing with, I'll say, hey, I would be mindful about taking this extra bit of time, because in past circumstances, people haven't come back. If we're dealing with something, we should really be mindful of it. But I think there could be more that I can speak over and amplify in my own light. Instead, I tend to go very staccato. This is, and we gotta get, instead of kind of I don't know how the visual that's coming through is more like this instead of I go zoom, like I'm like hitting a dart, you know, it's like, we got to do this, like, so you can feel that truth, you know, it feels different in my energy field. I think I need to, it needs to be brighter, perhaps, instead of.
Yeah, you know, transparency is an attribute of light. You can't see really when there is, I mean, darkness is opaque. Opaque is the opposite of transparent. So it is opaque. And as soon as I start sensing that, oh, there's something off, more light. What did you mean by that? And what did you mean by this? I'm not sure I really understood that. I will ask a million more questions. It's like, what is really happening? What was the intent? I had a feeling that this. Correct me if I'm wrong. What did you really mean? And just like, when I feel the energy wanting to go hide, meaning somebody is trying to come address something outside of, like, I'm like, no, this is a container. Let's bring more light in here. This is the arena. There's nothing to hide. Actually, let's not hide. What else did you need? What are the conditions for satisfaction for you? What will make you happy here? You know, it's like, let's bring it. It's like every single time, more light. And more light to me. Practical light, in my experience, is transparency. Which is the reason why in the time that we are navigating, where the people are screaming for transparency.
100%.
Like, pay attention to all systems. People are like, oh, we want to see clearly into this. We want to see clearly into how these, let's say, freaking elections work, or how this system works, how this works, how this works. And the polar opposite response that we're receiving is more reasons to fear. Meaning, let's try to shut things down. Let's try to make people ask less questions. Anyways, transparency, whenever I'm dealing with, and this, it supports the work that you're also offering of connecting to my axis of light and strengthening that. Tuning into my field and dealing with the leakages in my field, the leaks, all of that, and really making sure that, my field feels more sovereign. And just like in the way I'm interacting with everything around me now, can I let transparency lead? When you have a transparent field, some people will just back away naturally. They will just like disqualify themselves. And I really love that. I really love that part.
Whew. This has been unbelievably powerful and moving and educational, educational, I think is very, very, very important in this time. And hopefully those who are called to listen to this, like I said, it was not dark at all. Even though we had some very, very, very dense conversations about this realm that we are experiencing, this realm of duality and this experience of evil. And yet, I feel extremely lighthearted, and I feel the same energy from you. And I certainly hope that those who listened to today's episode feel the exact same thing. Like, this is the energy we need. We need to not, in the same way that we don't want to run from our shadow, right? We don't want to run from evil either. We want to be educated and fortified and aware. I think awareness is one of the best weapons that we have. And hopefully by today's episode, people have more awareness. So, Xavier, do you feel called? Is there anything that's kind of pressing on your heart? You feel called to share either about yourself, about your work, or just about today? Is there anything that feels like it would close out a loop of conclusion for you?
I mean, first, I want to express my ultimate gratitude, for even having me here. But the one thing that I really want to anchor, really want to drive through for so many people, it is a piece about spiritual arrogance. I find it to be such a big, big downfall for many of us. Seeing ourselves as incapable of like darkness, that is one form of it. It's like we put ourselves on a pedestal when it comes to darkness. And I'm like, hey, maybe you have capacity for it. And you may even ask yourself, how am I often using, ill intent or darkness to get my point across, or to discharge some energies, that I usually do not allow myself to to deal with directly, because we all have these entry points if we're not careful. Like one of my imprints, for example, it is I would say the not wanting to experience ridicule or shame. If I'm not careful with that, it becomes a solid entry point. If I don't sometimes on purpose humble up, it's not like a humbling down, like, oh poor me, I am nothing type thing. It's not necessarily that. It's like a humbling that is like, hey, you know what? You're made in the image of God. Yes, true. And you're freaking human. You're gonna shine your light imperfectly. You're gonna make mistakes publicly. You're gonna get many things wrong. You're gonna misread people, you know. And at the same time, honor your own discernment. Pay attention to what feels true to you. Honor that in the best of your ability. But, you know, just honor the fact that you came here to be human, meaning there's a capacity to just make honest mistakes, and that's okay. So the humbling there has been a profound source of shielding, weirdly enough. In, instead of wanting to elevate myself in a place that is above, I don't know, darkness or evil, you know. That has been one thing. It's so important to know our own vulnerabilities and to not let our vulnerabilities be used against ourselves. So important. And the other thing I would say is really finding ways to reconcile with God is one of the most beautiful, and I mean really with God, you know, like go for God. Um, what I mean by that is like there are so many beautiful substitutes that feel better in your body that people use. That's great, that's fantastic. But if there's something about the word God that really upsets you and triggers you, I would look into that. I was like, what about it? What about it? This word, this name, or whatever, that is all encompassing. What about it really bothers me? What about it? I would really inquire because without a solid allyship with that source, it's going to be really challenging in the next few months, few years to deal with the amplification of the reactivity of darkness and evil. We are dealing with times where light is amplifying, things are accelerating. And what happens when dark energy, by dark energy I really mean like evil energy, gets blasted with light? It tries to amplify fear. That's what it tries to do. It feeds off of that. So it is a matter of like spiritual survival, spiritual hygiene. It is so crucially important. And yeah, what hides in the shadow in relationship to um these entities are the entry points. Our entry points hide in the shadow. Like the part of me that is so afraid of experiencing humiliation that I would rather contract with something that is not of a godlike nature than feeling humiliated. That's my entry point. It's like, so what hides in the shadow if your entry points, and from the entry points it welcomes the interferences that are often there. So the work of integration is actually, let me it's not it's let me create a stronger relationship or heal the relationship with a part of me that is still afraid of the initial wounding, that I may be unconsciously allowing interferences that enter my field to kind of shield me from experiencing this core wounding by contracting with what is not really mine, and that is creating distortion within me. And also, I think a great deal of strengthening when it comes to dealing with, I want to say, spiritual persecution is so important during these times. It is so important. so that the dark prayers of whoever doesn't like your face, the dark prayers of like the dark, it's the Schadenfreude, if we want to put it in a. Some people are less scared when I use the psychological terms than when I use terms like ill intent or evil intent. I'm like, okay, I'll use for you the psychological term that somebody may hold. I mean, it's energetics. If your field is open, it will have an impact. It's just finding fortification within ourselves more than ever before. This is no longer woo-woo. This is physics. There's nothing woo-woo about it. This is physics. This is consciousness. This is energetic math. As simple as that. There's nothing woo-woo about it. So get on the train, find what works for you, find a healer that works for you. Yeah, but do what you need to strengthen your field, to create that sovereign field. It's a matter of, I would say energetic survival at this point. That's what I would like to say.
I had this little breakthrough as I was hearing you speak because, like I shared with you, I do removals. So this one was a bugger. Like, I was having a tough time working with light to help it because it was very stubborn in this person's energy field. Finally, once I removed it, depending on the type, because there are different types of nefarious entities, of course, in my personal philosophy, I want to bring it back to light. So I put it in like this energetic jail cell. Okay, let's call it that because I don't know how else to explain it. And I'm with my guides, and this is the first time this has ever happened to me. So imagine I'm clairvoyantly doing all of this, and I put it in this jail cell, and next thing you know, it goes like this and stares at me right in my eyeballs. And of course, I'm in my spirit energy, but it made me go, for a second, a split second, it was like it wanted me to see it so clearly, but it also brought up one of my deeper fears of fully being seen. And that was just like a little breakthrough for me, because then what ended up happening is it was very quick, and I was like, whoa, that's never happened before. And then my guides kind of zoomed in, and I was like, okay, we're back in the work. And we did the destroying process. That's like the 3D word for saying sending it back to the light. However, that I ended up leaving being like, that was so fascinating. What a weird experience I had in spiritual work today. And I didn't even put it together that maybe the reason why it was seeing me like that was so that I could notice a different part of my own shadow of fully being seen. And it was trying its like final hurrah, if you will, to kind of puncture that piece. Because when I'm in my spiritual strength, I call myself like the magician. Like, I go in full strength, like to bring the sword of truth, and my energy is just like, whoa, so big. And then that one piece of seeing me, I felt like that could have been something. And I really appreciate you for bringing that, because you've brought in me tools, little tools to put in my toolkit, practical, wise, implementative, immediately tools into my existence, on top of bringing me little breakthroughs. So thank you.
You're so welcome. One thing I would love to say to this, it's like, I am ready to bet that the way you perceive yourself being seen by that energy, that's always how it saw you. It's like, that's always how it saw you, even before, and maybe it saw way more than what you were able to see through its glare. Because one thing about these energies or entities, they are so much more aware of your light than we are. They are so much more aware of our lights as we are. So, and when you enter a room, they felt you coming from from a mile away or more. So yeah, that was a beautiful gift, though. That was a beautiful gift. It wrapped in like a lot of like fear for sure, but that was a beautiful gift.
It really was. And I guess I didn't even think about it like a gift until you shared what you were sharing. And then I was like, wow, wait, there's something there for me. There's definitely, because I have been traced before by nefarious entities, followed, had people in my world who've had very dark attachments. I didn't see it. And then when I did, it was like right at the perfect vulnerability. Like, I've had things like that, but I never thought about it like that when I was in the spiritual work. And that's like getting my wheels turning a bit in a really, really blessed way. And it's very rare that somebody can get my wheels turning about entities in a very blessed way. So, wow, I knew you were trauma informed. I knew you were an extraordinary, brilliant writer. I knew that you did real shadow work, but I had no idea going into today's conversation that you were actually like solid when it came to the world of evil as well. And so like, cheers to you and to everything that you're doing in the world. And like, I just have such mad respect and love and connection for what you're doing in the world. And just all praises to you. 10x blessings on your wedding, your union, the work that you're doing, your extraordinary book, Scars of Gold, like unbelievable. Thank you for your service and your mission and your work in the world.
I just want to say thank you to you too. It's been a pleasure to be here with you. Yeah.
This was good. This was one of my top episodes, just simply for me. You know, I'm always thinking, what can I take out of this episode? And this was just deep confirmation, validation, tools, equipment, and just, honor. That's the word that wants to come through. So now we'll leave this episode with our listeners and we'll leave it to them. Is it shadow or is it evil? Well, we'll leave it with you to find out for yourselves. See you again.